Hey everyone, welcome back. It's awesome to see so many of you interested in this digital earning world.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff.
I mean, you've got folks selling stuff online, doing freelance work, even diving into crypto. It's like a whole new frontier out there.
It really is.
But like with any gold rush,
Yeah.
you've got to be smart about it, right?
Right.
Especially when it comes to taxes.
Absolutely.
Speaking of which, the IRS just released their top tips for filing in 2025.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
And let me tell you, they're really zeroing in on this digital income boom.
They are not messing around.
It definitely seems like they're trying to send a clear message
What's that?
that they're paying attention
Oh, for sure.
to all of it,
You know, it's funny. It used to be that taxes were all about your regular 9-to-5 job,
right?
but now it's everything.
Everything.
Well, almost everything. Online sales, services you're doing through apps, even those part-time gigs you pick up, it's all on their radar.
Wow, that's a pretty big shift.
It is, and it's important for people to understand that.
Yeah, I mean, especially with so many people embracing these digital opportunities.
Exactly.
But there was one thing in the IRS tips that really caught my eye.
I wonder if it's the same thing that caught mine. What was it?
They specifically called out something called digital asset transactions.
Ah, yes. That's a big one.
Yeah, for those who might not be super familiar with that term.
All right. It can be a little jargony,
It basically covers things like cryptocurrency and NFTs.
which, by the way, are only getting more and more popular.
Totally. It's like everyone's talking about them these days.
It's the future, or at least that's what everyone's saying.
But the thing is, taxing these digital assets, well, it's an uncharted territory for the IRS.
It really is. How do you even begin to tax something that exists purely in the digital world?
Yeah, it's almost like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole.
Ha! That's a great way to put it.
But hey, at least they're making an effort to adapt, right?
They are, they are.
And you know what else I noticed? They're really pushing for electronic filing and direct deposit.
Oh, yeah, big time.
It seems like they're really trying to streamline things.
Makes sense, though, doesn't it?
Totally. Faster refunds for us, less paperwork for them.
Exactly. It's a win-win. Well, maybe not a win for the trees, but definitely for us and the IRS.
Ah, fair point.
Huh.
But speaking of making things easier, the IRS also highlighted a bunch of free resources for taxpayers.
Oh, absolutely. Those are essential.
Yeah, like free file for people earning under a certain amount.
Right. Which a lot of people qualify for, by the way.
And they've even expanded the direct file program this year.
I think that's a fantastic move.
Me too. It seems like they're really trying to make this whole tax thing less daunting.
Well, taxes are never going to be fun,
Wow.
but they can at least be manageable.
True that. And it's awesome that they're recognizing the specific needs of military families too.
Oh, for sure.
With that mil tax program, free filing with no income limits.
Can't beat that. But, you know, not everyone needs a whole program or extra help.
You're right. Some people are totally comfortable tackling their taxes on their own.
The DIY approach.
So what options do those folks have?
Well, you can always go old school with paper forms, but who does that anymore? You can use the free file fillable forms online.
Ah, so it's like the digital version of the paper forms.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
And of course, there are all those online tax services out there too.
Plenty of options these days, but you gotta be careful with those.
How so?
Some of them can get pretty pricey, especially if you've got a lot of complex stuff going on, like those digital asset transactions we were talking about.
Good point. So when does it make sense to call in the professionals?
Well, if your taxes are giving you a headache, or if you just don't feel confident handling it yourself, then it's probably time to call in a pro.
A tax pro to the rescue.
Exactly. They can help you navigate all the tricky parts, especially when it comes to things like digital assets. Make sure you're taking advantage of all the deductions and credits that you're eligible for.
Sounds like a good investment.
Yeah.
And speaking of finding a good tax pro,
Yes.
I know the IRS has a directory on their website, right?
They do, they do. It's a great resource for finding qualified and reputable tax professionals in your area.
Awesome. So basically, choosing the best way to file your taxes really depends on your own situation and comfort level.
You got it. DIY, online service, or a tax proactive, the important thing is to be informed and proactive.
I like that. Taking control of your taxes.
It's your money, after all.
Oh, true.
And in this exciting new world of digital earning, staying on top of your tax obligations is more crucial than ever.
Couldn't agree more. Well, we've covered a lot of ground so far,
We have.
but we're just getting started. Stay tuned because in our next segment, we're diving deeper into the wild world of taxing digital assets.
It's going to get interesting.
You bet it is.
You know, what really blows my mind with all this digital stuff is that it's making us rethink some pretty basic ideas about taxes.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, take the concept of income, right? Or assets, or even property. How do those definitions even work when you're talking about something that only exists online?
Yeah.
We're talking about cryptocurrencies running on this whole separate system from traditional banks and stuff, and NFTs. They're basically like owning a piece of digital art or a collectible, but it's all digital.
It's like we need a whole new financial dictionary just to keep up.
Seriously, it's not enough to just know about budgeting and investing anymore. You got to learn about blockchain, crypto wallets, and all the risks and rewards that come with these digital assets.
So it's not just the IRS trying to play catch up here, is it?
Definitely not. Lawmakers and regulators all over the world are scrambling to figure this stuff out. How do you tax something that basically only exists in the digital world? And how do you track transactions when they're often happening across borders and anonymously?
That sounds like a nightmare.
It's definitely a challenge. But hey, that's why the IRS is putting so much emphasis on record keeping.
They are.
It's more important than ever to keep detailed records of all your digital asset transactions. Dates, amounts, the reason for each transaction. Gotta have it all.
So if you're buying, selling, or trading crypto, you better be organized.
Absolutely. No more winging it. But speaking of taxes, how are these digital assets actually taxed?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Well, it really depends on how you're using them. If you're just holding on to them as an investment, any gains you make when you sell them are usually treated like capital gains. Pretty straightforward.
Okay, that makes sense.
But if you're using them to buy things, well, things get a little trickier.
Trickier how?
Let's say you use Bitcoin to buy a pizza.
I love pizza.
Me too. But that transaction right there, it triggers a taxable event. You have to figure out the capital gain or loss based on the difference between what you paid for the Bitcoin and its value when you bought that delicious pizza.
Ugh, my head's already spinning.
It can be confusing. And there are different rules for different types of digital assets, like NFTs. The tax rules for those can be a real headache, especially if you're creating or selling them.
Sounds like you really need to be on top of your game to avoid trouble with the IRS.
No kidding. That's why staying informed is so important. And don't be afraid to get professional help if you need it. The rules around digital assets are still changing all the time, so it's crucial to stay up to date.
It is. And hey, speaking of help, don't forget about all those free resources we talked about earlier.
Right.
Free File, Direct File, VIDA, TCE, Mill Tax. There's something for everyone.
Exactly. And if you're dealing with more complex stuff like NFTs or trading a lot of crypto, it might be worth talking to a tax professional who specializes in digital assets.
Someone who really knows their stuff.
Exactly. They can help you make sure you're doing everything right and not missing out on any deductions or credits you're entitled to.
Smart move.
Yeah.
So the bottom line is, it's not just about understanding the technology and the potential of these digital assets.
Yeah.
You've got to understand the tax side of things too.
You got it. And that's why being financially savvy in this digital world is more important than ever.
It's all connected, isn't it? The technology, the investments, the taxes.
It's a whole new ball game out there.
It really is. But you know, all this talk about the IRS and taxes, it's easy to lose sight of the bigger picture.
What do you mean?
All this digital innovation, it's not just about making money, right? It has the potential to change how we live, work, and interact with each other. It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it.
You're absolutely right. Think about it. Digital assets and blockchain technology have the power to transform so many industries, from finance and art to even things like supply chains and healthcare.
It's not just about individual gain. It's about the potential for positive change on a much larger scale.
Exactly. But of course, with great power comes great responsibility.
Spider-Man.
You got it. But seriously, we need to make sure we're using these technologies in a way that's ethical and responsible.
Okay, so we've talked about the IRS's focus on digital earnings, the wild world of taxing digital assets, the importance of being financially smart, and even the ethical side of things. But before we wrap up, what are some practical steps our listeners can take to make sure they're approaching this digital earning thing responsibly?
Well, for starters, don't just jump into anything blindly.
You mean do your research?
Exactly. Before you invest in any digital asset, you really need to understand what you're getting into. What's the technology behind it? What are the potential risks and rewards? And most importantly, does it align with your own financial goals and values?
Yeah, that makes sense. It's not just about chasing the latest trend.
Right. It's about making smart choices that are right for you and your financial future.
Totally. And, something else we should probably talk about is the impact our digital activities can have on, well, the real world.
Ah, yes, the ethical side of things. It's easy to forget about that when you're dealing with something that feels so virtual.
Exactly. Can you give me an example?
Sure, think about some cryptocurrencies. They've gotten a lot of criticism for using up a ton of energy because of all the complex computations involved in mining them. That raises some serious questions about their environmental impact.
So even though it's all happening in the digital world, there are real-world consequences.
Absolutely. And the same goes for NFTs. There's been a lot of debate about intellectual property rights and whether artists are getting a fair shake in this new digital art market.
It's a good reminder that even in this digital space, our actions have real-world impacts. We need to be aware of those impacts and make conscious choices about how we participate in this digital economy.
Couldn't agree more. As this whole digital landscape keeps growing, it's going to be more and more important for us to consider the ethical side of things, both for ourselves and for the wider community.
So it's not just about making as much money as possible. It's about using these technologies in a way that's sustainable and responsible.
That's it. It's about finding that balance between individual gain and what's good for everyone.
Love that. It really highlights how interconnected we all are in this digital age.
We are, more than ever before.
Okay, so let's recap. We've covered a lot of ground today. The IRS is laser focused on digital earnings. Taxing digital assets is a whole new world. Financial literacy is more important than ever. And we need to be mindful of the ethical implications of all this.
Phew, we've been busy.
We have. But it's all important stuff. And I hope our listeners feel more informed and empowered to navigate this exciting new world.
Me too. It's an incredible time to be alive, and I'm really excited to see where all this leads.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's one final thought-provoking question our listeners can ponder as they embark on their digital earning adventures?
How about this? As the lines between the physical and digital worlds become even more blurred, how will our understanding of work, wealth, and value change? And what role do we want to play in shaping that future?
Whoa, that's a big one. It really makes you think about the long-term implications of all this.
It does, and I think it's a conversation we need to keep having. The digital age is full of possibilities, but it also comes with new challenges and ethical dilemmas. It's up to us to figure out how to navigate it all in a way that benefits everyone.
Well said. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into earning in the digital age. Remember, knowledge is power. Stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, stay engaged. Until next time, happy earning.